Color grading, the thing that everyone has an opinion about, the thing that everybody thinks they know how to do, the thing that you've seen 1,000 videos about. That's what we're talking about today. And just a disclaimer, this is not a video of me trying to sell you a LUT. I have no LUTs for sale at this moment. Not saying that I never will, but as of right now, this is not me selling you my LUT as a end-all be-all to color grading. This is me showing you my process of how I grade my videos. Is it the right way to do it? Don't know. Does it work for me? Yeah. Is it the professional way? Probably not. But I'm just gonna give it to you regardless. I think there's a big misconception about color grading and the idea that you can just take a LUT from so-and-so off the internet and then it's just gonna magically make your footage look amazing. That's definitely not the case. The biggest piece of your footage looking good with the color grade is really gonna start in camera. It's gonna start with the lighting. It's gonna start with the composition. It's gonna start with the exposure. All of those things come way before the color grade. And frankly, they matter way more. You can have a great colorist, but if you have crappy lighting, it's not gonna make a difference. You can have a great colorist, but if you missed exposure terribly, it's not gonna make a difference. And that's the thing that we need to understand about color grading, is that you have to get it right in camera first, and then you can begin to grade and stylize your footage. Now you're gonna see that I probably don't do things the conventional way. Do I do things the right way? I don't really know. I am very much of a self-taught individual. I use YouTube, just like you guys are watching this video, to learn things. And over the years, I've just picked up tips and tricks that work for me, and I'm pleased with the results 90% of the time. Do I only use my own LUTs? No. Do I have my own LUTs? Yes, I have a few that I use that are mine for certain situations. And then I have some LUTs from other companies like Lens Distortions and Buttery LUTs and all these different companies that create amazing conversion LUTs for Canon footage. So I have an assortment of LUTs that I use, and I'm gonna break down how I use each one in this video. But before I jump over to the computer, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're watching this video. I appreciate you. Thank you for watching. If you don't know me, my name is Brock. I've been a filmmaker for about 8 years now, ever since I graduated high school in 2015. It has been a self-taught journey. I'm very much of a run and gun. I do not claim to be a professional DP, although I have aspirations to do those types of jobs. I've just grown over the years with equipment and skill sets and the opportunity to be able to create films for my job and other people. So if you're into filmmaking, if you're into tech, if you're into cameras, and you like the gadgets and you like the process, this is the channel to subscribe for. So if you're not subscribed, hit that button, hit the like button. I'm glad you're here. Okay, so I got a bunch of clips here from my trip to Washington back in October, and I'm gonna kind of go through a few different shots and kind of grade them differently and show you guys kind of how I would do it. So I'm gonna start with this one because it's just one of my favorite shots. Just a real clean shot. It's real simple. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to take it from this to this, and then to this. Okay, so this is what you're gonna be left with. It's nice and warm. It's nice and like punchy and contrasty, but at the same time, it still is not like overly crushed. It kind of softens the highlights. It's just super, I don't know, just a good looking image. So basically what I do is I start with throwing my conversion LUT on there, and then I will go and start making corrections. So this conversion LUT is from Buttery LUTs. They have some of my favorite C-Log 2 LUTs. I'm using their C-Log 2 just Direct 709, the baseline one. There's some that add contrast and some that can take away contrast. Use them on certain occasions, but for the most part I typically go with just the standard one. And so this is what you're left with. Not a bad looking image. It looks a little flat, but that's the point. It gets the color back, it gets the saturation back, adds a little bit of contrast. It's fine. Nothing too crazy, whatever. Okay, so there's one big thing that I do here when I'm adding my corrections, and I use color wheels to add contrast back, add saturation back, adjust the shadows, highlights, all that kind of stuff, is you want to make sure that you drag the color wheels on top of the LUT. Okay, you don't want them underneath in the layer order on your effects tab. It's very important because it affects the image very differently. So what I've done here, I'll show it to you before I enable it. All I'm doing, honestly guys, all I'm doing is saturating basically the mid tones, desaturating the highlights just a bit. Here it looks like I'm just pumping the highlights and pulling down the mids, and this is what this gets you. Okay, and you might be thinking, that's pretty saturated, and it is, and it's probably oversaturated, and I typically don't like oversaturated images, but then I'm going to add my adjustment layer, and that changes things. So I'm going to get there in a minute. But basically, all you're doing with these corrections is you want to add contrast, right? You're adding contrast, you're adding color back. So basically, it takes it from the LUT, right? LUT, step one, get some of it back. Then you're adding your corrections, okay? And like I said, all I'm doing with this one is I drop the shadows just a little bit, midtones just a little bit, and then pump the highlights from there to about there, okay? It's real simple. I told you guys, it's a really simple process. Now, this is where the magic sauce comes in, and this is my favorite part of color grading, is the adjustment layer. Now, in Final Cut, there's ways to get adjustment layers. I have one here. Honestly, don't even remember where I got it from. But basically, dragging an adjustment layer, which I've already done. And on this adjustment layer, the only thing that I have right now is another LUT. And these are LUTs from lensdistortions.com. I'm not sponsored by any of these places. I just really like their products. Lens Distortion is great if you want good, super cinematic sound design. If you want like good risers and hits and drops and stuff, they're amazing for that. But they also have these finishing LUTs that I absolutely love. And you can really stylize your footage with these. I have a handful of them. And the cool thing about this is where the styles come in. And this is basic right now. I mean, it looks fine, but it's essentially all this is at the moment is basically just like complete Rec 709. It looks really good, looks nice and contrasty. But now I may want to stylize it to a certain look, right? And I'm feeling something kind of warm. So I went with their Lens Distortions Super Gold 3 is what I chose here. And basically what this is going to do, you'll see, it's simply going to just change the way the midtones react and the way the oranges and the browns and the greens react. So here we go, going to enable it now, and you see, boom. So what it's done, right, if you can see that, it's kind of muted the greens a little bit and made this real like woodsy, earthy kind of look, right? And honestly, now that I'm seeing it, it's a little underexposed, a little dark. So what we could do, we'll go back into our clip, not the adjustment layer, but on the clip, we'll just pump the highlights just a little bit. Let's do that. Bring up that. Okay. And then, so now you're left with this. And I think it just gives it a little more character. It makes it have this kind of cohesive feeling. And that's what the adjustment layer LUT does, the stylized LUT, the finishing LUT, is that almost kind of glues all of the clips in your film together. It kind of makes them all feel the same, and that's kind of what you're going to go for. As you can see right here, I have the LUT, the adjustment layers over this clip, right? There's nothing on it, right? But see how much it's changing? You can tell. It's basically adding this kind of warm glow to it. So then if I enable on this track, this clip, all of the stuff, all the effects and the corrections. Then when you go to this waterfall shot, boom. It kind of, even though it's a very different shot, very different situation, very different lighting scenario, it's very similar, right? It has a similar vibe. You do the same thing with this guy and this guy, and you'll see, okay, so we're going to go from here, boom, right? Nice. Kind of walking, maybe we're walking to the waterfall, right? You know, you could spin the story however you want. And then you're going to go right into this waterfall shot, which is sick. Looks nice. Not too much you can do there. Right into this, which kind of tonally matches, right? Got the warm browns and the tones, and then the sun, this tree, right? The sun shining through. It's perfect. That's one way to do it. That's one style, right? Let's see. I'll show you some different with lens distortions. What you can do, like these are some of the different ones. This one's called tonal sand. We'll go with that one. See, that's just kind of a little bit of a different look. Then you can go canyon red, which is really warm, too warm. If you wanted to make this black and white, you could do black and white. They have like really good black and white conversion LUTs. Love those. Golden Age. Golden Age is like your classic teal and orange kind of vibe. This teal one I really like a lot for certain situations. I'll show you a different clip with this on it. This one can be really cool for certain stuff. I really like what this does if you have a lot of, this teal one, if you have a lot of magenta in your skin tones, it can really fix that. Which if there's one negative thing about Canon color, it's that can happen on occasion. So with the magenta, so that's a way to kind of fix that. I use that a lot to do that. But the cool thing about this adjustment layer is the fact that you can also make changes on the adjustment layer. Like if you feel that you want to adjust a tone throughout the whole film, right? If you're noticing a trend that you just want to either on every clip pull out a little bit of blue in the shadows, or add a little blue in the shadows, or make a change here or there, add film grain, all those things, the adjustment layer is where you're going to do that. All right, so now let's move on to this shot. Very simple shot of Lucas by the lake here. We kind of want to go for a different vibe here. We may not want to go for those warm browns. So let's see if we can get some blues and some softer kind of highlights, and just see what we can get here. So basically what I've done already is I've added my conversion LUT, so boom. And now this shot is pretty overexposed, not in a bad way, but it's very bright, because I know with the C70, a lot of Canon cameras, and a lot of cameras in general, you can always recover the highlights. So in this situation, that's what I've done here. So with my color wheels, the way you can add contrast, because right now everything just looks really flat, the way I add contrast back is pulling down the midtones and pulling down the shadows. I'll always start a little bit with the shadows, like very minimal, and then pull down the midtones to my liking. In some situations, you're gonna need to pull down more than others. So like this situation, I actually pulled down a good amount of both. And you can already see that the glow from the sun on the mountain here is already kind of shown itself back into the image. And now I'm actually pulling down saturation a little bit on the highlights, and I'm adding it once again to the midtones. That was before you add that. And what the midtones do is that's where a lot of your skin tones lie. They're gonna lie in that mid area. So you can add a lot of warmth and color back into someone's skin with the midtones, and that's why I like to do it. I never really like to add saturation to my shadows, because that's when things get grainy and kind of gross looking and muddy. So if you never saturate your shadows, and it sometimes honestly even desaturate my shadows, and that's in my experience been the best result. So now let's come in and see how we want to stylize this. I'm gonna go to that golden age one, the more teal and orange kind of film stocky look, and let's add this back in. Okay, you can see here, it's not really doing a whole lot, which is good. That's what you want. And so this is a situation where, contrary to this shot where I really liked the finished result and didn't have to edit much after adding the finishing LUT on, I kind of like the way it looked. This one, I'm not sold on it right away. So first off, let's just try and see if we can find another one that might work better. Let me go back to the one that was just we were using on the other one. I think it was super gold. See, I just don't like that as much. It doesn't match the location. I feel like we need more blues, because I was here. The water was blue, okay? Like powder blue. So let's go back to, let's see, which one was it? It was the golden age. We could try different golden ages. Let's see, we'll go to golden age 1. Softens the highlights a little bit. Okay, so now we're here. I'm gonna try to make some adjustment layer corrections with some color wheels. So to me, it's a little flat, it's a little bit overexposed. So we can add contrast once again on the adjustment layer. You see already that's popping in. We'll add a little bit of highlights to get some of the punch back. And I may even saturate the highlights just a bit and just see where that gets us, okay? Bring the shadows up just a little bit. You don't want to get the shadows too crunchy. And let's see how this looks in full screen here. Yeah, it's not bad, and it kind of fits the location. I mean, again, when you're shooting, you got to remember you were there, so you know what it looked like. So always try to remember that when you're throwing in your edits. And then we'll go to this shot here. I've already made some corrections once again. So we have our conversion LUT and then color wheels. Okay, look at that. Yeah, see, that's nice and blue. It's exactly what it looked like. It's beautiful, right? Love it. Very clean. Love it. Now let's move on to this shot of the lodge here. This is all in Lake Crescent, Washington, by the way, in Olympic National Park, in case anybody's wondering. So this is the correction I made here, right? So conversion LUT, again, not bad. Kind of flat, but I just wanted some warmth. I feel like a lodge should be warmth. And now looking at it now, I may bring the shadows up just a little bit. It's a little too crunchy. But other than that, man, that's pretty perfect. And that's kind of how the lodge felt. It had that vibe to it. Could even bring the highlights back just a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. It was a little bit too orange for my taste. It's funny when you like leave. I always encourage this when you color grade a project. Come back the next day and look at it with fresh eyes, because you're gonna see things differently. I do that all the time, and it's always good to do that, especially if you're deep into a project and you've been doing it for a while. It's always nice to come back with fresh eyes. Let's go to this shot here and see what we got going on here. So I'm just kind of showing you my process, guys. It's not nothing really technical. This is what I've done. So this is another example of when you add the conversion LUT, how overexposed and washed out it can feel. And this is why I tell people you have to make corrections beyond your LUTs. You're not going to find an end-all be-all LUT, and you have to be able to feel it out. And again, overexposing here was a good thing because it's going to allow me to have latitude in post and be able to create a look that I want to do. If you underexpose, it's going to be really hard to do that. So when you add a conversion LUT, boom, looks real blue, looks kind of washed out. Lucas looks super pale, and he's not that pale in real life. So this is my correction layer, and look at that, boom. Honestly, that's pretty good, right? That's not bad. We take this adjustment layer off just for a minute. Yeah, so that's really what it looked like with just, this is just LUT before the adjustment layer. The adjustment layer was still on. Then you add the color wheels back in, so much better, so much better. And then we add the adjustment layer back in. See, it just adds that warmth to his skin, and it makes him look alive and vibrant, and everything looks great. So again, this is an example of you have to move beyond just the conversion LUT. You got to do some tests. See, also you got to see how they blend together. You want to make sure that they all look good together, especially like at least the shots within a certain location. Yeah, that's fire. And so they all kind of make sense together. You see what I'm saying? They're cohesive. They kind of look like they were on the same camera at the same location. So that's what you want. And then when we make this transition to this next shot in the woods, it has its own vibe. And that's kind of what you're going to go for, is you want to make sure that your stuff is cohesive. And that's where the finishing LUTs come into play. All right, now let's move to these shots here, these few shots. This is the last example. I'm just going to give you another example. This is a very different environment, right? This was obviously a very overcast day, very gray. And you got to be careful with these because you don't want the gray to look like this, right? Because it just wouldn't make sense. So with this one, we have our teal LUT on the adjustment layer. So this is from log to Rec 709. You can see these shots are harder to grade. Those last shots, I had a good environment, right? I had sunny days, I had pretty blue skies, or I had nice woods and sunshine and golden hour. This is a more challenging shot to grade because the fact that the sky is so one-dimensional. There's no texture, there's nothing. It's just like flat. So it's gonna make it hard to make it really pop like the previous shots were. So I'm gonna do my best. So add my color corrections in. I wanted to bring out some of the warmth from the rock and like the orange and brown from the rock and highlight the greens a little more. So that's kind of what I did here. Again, added contrast back, crushed the not crushed, but brought down the midtones a lot. You can bring down the shadows a little bit more. And then I actually boosted the highlights to kind of add contrast when you pull down those midtones. You kind of want to think of it that way. And then let's add our LUT in and see what we get. And you can see what the teal's doing. The LUT here is it's going to add the kind of vibe of the day, the kind of dreary, cooler toned situation. But my corrections still left in the warmth from the rock. So you can see, like, if I come in here and just take that away, it's gone, right? So that's what that's doing. That's why you correct and then add your adjustment layer on top, and then you can make changes accordingly. Same with this shot here. This is Lucas standing out here. A fun fact, this shot's actually out of focus. It's actually in the film from this trip, but it's out of focus. But it's far enough away, it doesn't really matter. I just like the shot enough to keep it. So this is what we're gonna do here. Same situation, okay? So this is getting it to Rec 709. Boom. Okay, we'll take the adjustment layer off. This is Rec 709 here from log, see log 2. Then we're gonna come in and add the color wheels. Again, looking at this again today, it's a little warm for probably the environment. So what we'll do is we'll pump the highlights just a little bit and kind of get it looking right. And then come in here and add the adjustment layer back. Boom. See, that's exactly how the vibe felt that day. And these, but here's one problem. I'm just encountering this right now. These shots don't really match. They do, but they don't. This one's a little warmer. So what we're gonna do, let's see, we'll do this. Just change it like that. All I did there was take a little warmth out of the highlights. So now when you come from this shot to this shot, they feel the same. And that's what you're going for. You want your film to be cohesive. You want it to make sense, not just from a story perspective, but also from a color perspective. You want it to feel like it was all shot in one situation and graded by the same person. So you can see here we have 3 different vibes. just kind of bright, more blue toned, cooler image, but still warm and inviting and happy and like just a good vibe, right? Then we move into this more brown, kind of woodsy, warmer, kind of late in the day, golden hour kind of situation. And then we move to a cooler, overcast, rainy, dreary, by the ocean, kind of cold and windy kind of vibe. And the color is helping sell all of that. Obviously, I'm at great locations and it's beautiful and all of that, but the color is what's selling this. And then obviously on top of this, you would go and add sound design and all that good stuff. I have some adjustment LUTs of my own, some finishing LUTs of my own that I use on occasion as well. Like I have this one that's kind of like a film look that I really like, that I made myself. And this one, again, is very similar to, it's kind of got the same vibe as this Golden Age LUT a little bit. It's a very similar situation, but it works. It's kind of the same idea. But mine is a little bit more subtle. It's a little less image altering, which I like. So I use that one a lot too, just to kind of soften things up and give it some nice highlight roll off and just adding some tones. So like I said, I use a mixture of my own LUTs and a mixture of other companies' LUTs, and it's great. You don't always have to make everything yourself. These 5 up here are mine, but then I also have a lot of buttery LUT stuff. I have a lot of lens distortion. Remember, get it right in camera first. It'll make your life so much easier. So yeah, that's the process. That is how I color grade my stuff. It is not always the same. It is not always the same tools, not always the same LUTs, but that's generally what I do when I jump into an edit and begin to color grade my footage. And I think 85% of color grading in general is simply feel. Can you feel and see what you want your image to look like? Like, I think you have to have the instinct to be able to push a little bit of reds in the shadows or take away the reds in the shadows or know how to get the tones that you're wanting. And I think that comes with time, and it comes with instinct, and it comes with doing it over and over and over again. Practice makes perfect. If people say you're never going to be perfect, that's a lie, but practice is key to getting good at anything. And I think color grading is exactly that. You have to continue to practice. You have to continue to work at it and do it over again. Repetition. Take test shots. Practice your grading. Practice getting good skin tones. Practice achieving a look that you're going to go for. Try matching a shot from your favorite movie. Like, all those things help with grading and allow you to become better at the craft. Lighting is king. Exposure is king. Color grading is just the icing on the cake. Get your composition right, get your exposure right, get your lighting right, and it will make your color grading process so much smoother and allow you to get the look that you want.